Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. 60 days post-release on Brothers War. We'll take one last look at the collector boxes and their sales data scraped off of TCG Player. So over the entire pre-release period and through to 60 days post-release, they sold 3,119 collector boxes on TCG Player for a total spend of $668,000, coming to an average of $214 per box, which is just about what they're at today. You can get them $215 to $220 about on TCG Player and eBay. And so if we throw Dominaria United up here to look at it, well, it sold better. And this is interesting here. If you take the difference in total spin between these two sets, between Dominaria United as the red line, Brothers War as the blue line, you take the difference here. On release day, it was about $300,000. But if you come out to release plus 60 for each product in their respective life cycle, it was only $240,000. So Brothers War made up $60,000 of ground on Dominaria United. And you can see that in this early area, the difference in sale can mostly be chalked up to this initial huge leg up on the announcement of the Lost Legends cards. It's even more profound over here on the cumulative box sales. You can see that if you subtract this offset of this initial Lost Legends hysteria when they were first announced, that basically tracks most of the difference between these products over their whole pre-release and release plus 60-day life cycle. And so the really interesting thing about that is from release in November until today is right in the heat of the time when Magic players are the most irritated at WotC. It's the arrogance of the fireside chat and saying we've done nothing wrong, we haven't overprinted, there's no evidence that we're diluting the value of anything, and yet people are still buying about the same amount of boxes. They're still spending about the same amount of money, and in fact they're closing the gap between these products on spend. So let's throw up Neon Dynasty here. We'll add that to the mix. So the yellow line, and the interesting story that this tells is the story of the serialized cards in Brothers War and the Hitasugu Neon Parallel Chase cards in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And that story appears to be that once the market got a taste of the chase cards in Kamigawa, they just went crazy for it, and it supported the spend. The spend really didn't start leveling off until the very last week or two of this 60-day post-release period for Kamigawa, where it started to level off just about immediately for Brothers War. And there are a couple things to say about that. I really don't think that long-term people are going to look back at Hitasugu and think of it in a better light than they did the serialized cards. I think the serialized cards will do better in the long run, and this assumes that WotC doesn't print to oblivion either type of chase card. But I think it says potentially more about the different time periods. And essentially, Kamigawa got this post-release 60-day period back in February and March of 2022. And Brothers War had to do it in November and December and early January of 22 and 23. And so a much more difficult time just from the macroeconomic perspective and just for Magic in general. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put Brothers War here up next to Streets of New Capenna. And of course, Streets is the red line here, vastly underselling both on cumulative boxes and cumulative spend. Even at a much lower price, it undersold. And something I'm just thinking about with this is what does that mean long term for the gilded foil cards in the Streets of New Capenna collector boxes? Does that mean that there aren't as many out there on the secondary market broken loose as maybe the market will eventually demand? Will that eventually give some better underpinning to the price of the Streets collector boxes? It's hard to say. I just think the market is acting a bit irrational, pricing those boxes at 110, 115, 120 today. I think that's probably too low considering how badly they sold early in their life, even at a low price. I think eventually that's going to snap back and we'll see really strong price recovery at some point. Now, when? I don't know. How much? I don't know. Will it come back above Brothers War at some point? Who knows? But I think there's potential that those gilded foil cards find a strong floor in the future because of the lack of uptake of them early on in their life cycle. So that's it. That's all we're going to look at Brothers War collector boxes. We will come back to Brothers War set boxes at 100 and 150 days post-release to take a look at those. I cut off the collector box data because collector boxes get one print, that's it. They're a smaller print size, and they typically land in the final hands that will ever have them much sooner than the set boxes, which can just be printed and printed and printed if the market wants it. So that's why I cut these off after 60 days, so we won't be taking another look at these. Let me know what you think, any ideas you have about these theories I've outlined, or other things you're thinking of. Otherwise, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot.